YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 11 articles in this episode for you. Details are in the description of the video for your convenience. The first one here is off of Conservative Tribune. North Korean defector claims next nuke test will be... And if we can get the hamster to catch up to me here, I seem to be running ahead of him. Come on, hamster. North Korean defector has warned that North Korea's nuclear tests could have devastating effects not only for the communist country, but to the world. In an interview with Voice of America's VOA News, North Korea's former deputy ambassador in London said North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un intended to test nuclear bombs larger as tested before, and the results could be devastating. Come on, hamster. What's the matter with the hamster? Come on. Poor little guy. Well, feast or famine, chicken or feathers. He goes clear to the bottom of the page. Didn't need that much, little guy. Okay, here we go. On Tuesday, agency reported that according to 38 North, a website run by the South Korean Institute at Johns Hopkins University School of National Studies, satellite imagery of North Korea's nuclear test site showed substantial tunnel excavation is continuing at the North Portal, where the last 4 of the 5 underground nuclear tests by the North were conducted. That was the site the defector was particularly worried about. A nuclear test which the North is trying to conduct at the Punji site will break the country into 2 pieces, he warned. If a test is conducted, it would be 14 times more powerful than the previous one, Yonhap reported. Besides being a North Korean diplomat, he was also an analyst with the Institute for National Strategy. He said major roads and railways in the country pass by Punji Rai. Massive pollutes the area and subsequently Pyongyang or whatever it is, loses its control over the border areas of North Hamgyong province. A massive defection will take place there, he added. Consequences of such an explosion to an apocalypse. Reported the environmental pollution resulting from a failure to control a nuclear explosion in a small country like North Korea will almost be an apocalypse, he said. Doubt that Pengyi Ri is, it's Ri or Rai, it's R-I, is not China, indicating that it would be prudent for China to help prevent North Korea from conducting any tests. It's frightening to think that in a few years, and its nuclear arsenal could have missiles capable of striking the U.S. homeland. Kim needs to be stopped before he follows through with any more of these tests. We have that article. The next one is off of dailymail.co.uk. To catch up. Relationship with this hamster. I'd love to kill him, but I'd hate to get caught. It says here, bomb scare at the White House. Man drives to the gates and tells security he has explosives in his car. The second security alert at the president's home in one day. A person claiming to have a bomb pulled up to the White House. They were taken into custody, and security at the White House was upgraded. It's not clear if they actually had an explosive device. A driver reportedly pulled up to the White House and claimed to have a bomb in his car early on Sunday. It's not clear if there was an actual... Come on, hamster. It's not clear if they had an actual explosive device in the vehicle. The driver was taken into custody, and security was upgraded at the White House, according to CNN. Fences were also closed. Saturday, a person jumped over the bike rack in a buffer zone in front of the White House on Saturday while President Trump was in Florida, but was not able to make it over the fence into the grounds. Service agents tackled the individual who was arrested in question. Jonathan Than Ann, age 26, who had 2 cans of mace, said he had an appointment with his friend, President Donald Trump, faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison for entering the grounds without permission. The individual managed to climb over outer perimeter fence, scaled the vehicle gate, and hop fence near the southeast corner of the White House East Wing before he was captured after a 16-minute-plus jaunt. Service statement. The Secret Service can confirm at no time did the individual gain entry into the White House, the statement said. Tran's arrest came about a week after the incident that called into question security outside the White House. Just before midnight on March the 10th, a man scaled 3 barriers outside the White House, a perimeter fence, vehicle gate, and then another fence, and the executive mansion for 16 minutes before being arrested. Was inside the building. In this, if you want to, that. The end of that one. The next one I have here, off of iPatriot.com. Running as fast as he can go. Give him some Gatorade or something. Poor little guy. Well, it says rounding up and locking down George Soros is the name of this article. It says, is there anything good that can be said about George Soros? During doing my research, it would appear that there isn't. Not in my memory has there been a person so devoted to disruption, corruption, and perversion of the political kind as he is. Collaboration with the Nazis, aiding in the extermination of his fellow Jews and countrymen, or through his financial dealings, including breaking the Bank of England and manipulating money in different countries, he's amassed a huge fortune and is one of the richest men in the world. 2016, the business paper Investors, I'll get the ad off of it. Gee whiz. It ain't the hamster, it's ads coming in on it. Get off there. Back in August of 2016, the business paper Investors Business Daily ran a piece about Soros and his nonprofit organizations. Okay. A group that were actually frontmen for Hillary Clinton, the anti-Soros organization that investigated him. Interesting things, too. In a Soros-backed group, extreme and breakdown in civil discourse, which was to conduct opposition reports, translation, dig up dirt they could use, on many, including Pamela Geller, David Horowitz, President's daughter, Liz Cheney. This information, or dirt, was then given to another Soros group, the Center for American Progress, called CAP, for action. That wasn't enough. CAP was founded by, wait for it, John Podesta, who was at the time Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. And then we'll move along. Still, another group belonging to Soros was the Open Society Foundation, whose goal was to challenge Israel on the basis of their racist and anti-democratic policies. Now, it strikes me that this objective be a huge case of BS. democratic nation in the muddled Middle East. As for racism, what race were they against? Arabs? Arabs are not a race. Muslims? Muslims not a race. Blacks? Oh, there you might have a point, except for the fact that no blacks are oppressed in Israel. Soros and his minions do not want to allow any thoughts heard. He and his henchmen stifle debate, and different ideas and large amounts of money are spent to achieve those goals. Now let's examine supposed to be sorted out. Born in Hungary in 1930, because of being Jewish, he avoided the concentration camp by becoming adopted by a Christian family who worked for the Nazis. He came to the United States in 1956, having already become quite well known as a shrewd observer of the market. I'd have the first chunk, or I'm sorry, it jumped. Hang on. It jumped right out of my hands here. Okay, it's here that we might have the first chink in the armor. Refer to U.S. Code, Chapter 115-2385, advocating overthrow of government. In short, anyone that wants to overthrow the government by any means is guilty of sedition. Have to fall into that category because he's been known to supply funds to groups that have that goal in mind. The wording of the law is interesting. Say that, in my estimation, Soros could be hauled into court and charged with sedition. Long drawn out trial, and only skilled lawyers on both sides would be handling it. You can bet. If he lost, he could be sentenced to up to 20 years in prison, and considering his age, that would be a life sentence. In his past, I came across a theory, if you will. There are people who say that they have seen the immigration application form N-600, application for certificate of citizenship, that George Soros filled out when he came to the United States. The application asked, in course, if you have ever worked for, with, any group that was against the United States, and according to these folks, Soros answered in the negative. Never having seen one of these applications, how the questions are worded, but if collaboration with the Nazis isn't working against the United States, not to mention your own people, I don't know what might qualify as such. Also, there is a question asking if you've used other names since birth, and he has. Soros is not his birth name. At one point, he said he'd been adopted by a man other than his father. Hamster. From MRC News, well, and then he jumped too far. Come on. Hamster's got the heebie-jeebies tonight. For goodness sakes. I don't know what's got into the hamster. His mind. Come on. From MRC News Media Research Center, on March the 7th of this year, we have a piece about the various groups, marches, protests, riots that have occurred, mainly since Donald Trump inaugurated. One of the things pointed out about Soros is that 100 of the 544 women's march partners received a total of $246,037, or no, I'm way off on that. Hang on a minute. $246,007,017 from Soros between 2000 and 2014. More than 1,000,006 of those partners, including the Center for Reproductive Rights, MoveOn.org, and the Natural Resources Defense Council. Along with that, the donations are strictly for liberal causes, never for conservative ones. Cap received over $12 million and used that money to attack Christians and blame them for the Orlando shooting. $1 million went to the ACLU for bashing Catholic hospitals. The ACLU, which, by the way, hasn't been for true civil liberties in decades, legal arm for Soros. Not that he doesn't have other legal eagles as well. But if you like what Soros is doing, you love Sierra, you'll probably aid in the murder of your own friends and neighbors. The next article GOP, thedailydose.com, and it says, look, WikiLeaks uncovers something that could put in jail for years. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I've heard so many of these things over and over and over again. You know, this one's going to go to jail forever. This one's going to be put under the jail. They will never see this and again, and it just keeps coming. So I don't know. But that's what the title says. So we'll read it and see what it's got to say here. Senator John McCain has been very vocal about how much he dislikes President Trump. Unfortunately for McCain, WikiLeaks has uncovered something shocking and illegal from his past. Well, what else is new? According to the open source media organization, McCain's presidential campaign in 2008 sent a letter to Vitaly Churkin, the Russian ambassador to the United Nations. Mostly a boilerplate request for anywhere between $25 and $5,000. It to Churkin, an official representative of Moscow, via WikiLeaks. Ironically, McCain has been one of the biggest cheerleaders for the Democrat-driven idea that Russia hacked not only the Clinton campaign, but also used cyber warfare in order to skew the election results last year. Furthermore, McCain, who labeled the supposedly Russian-backed hacks of as an act of war, was responsible for passing the fabricated dossier about Donald Trump's liaisons with Russian prostitutes to FBI Director James Comey via Truth Monitor. McCain's requests for Russian contributions back in 2008 are not only hypocritical, but also illegal. Besides the actual letter that McCain's staff sent Churkin, WikiLeaks has also uncovered the official letter that the Russian government sent to McCain's office acknowledging that they had received the request via political mayhem. The release of this information is yet another indication that McCain's self-styled stance as the conscience of the Republican Party is nothing but a lie. Long before his failed presidential bid in 2008, McCain, a self-proclaimed maverick, was known for being a moderate who frequently collaborated with liberal Democrats. Even worse, as one of the leading foreign policy hawks in Washington, consistently supported deploying U.S. troops across the globe. Some have been worthwhile and legitimate, while others have been downright foolish. For instance, McCain vigorously demanded a larger U.S. role in the campaign against Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 and for direct U.S. involvement in the Syrian civil war in 2013. McCain even had the gall to be playing a game on his phone after voting to send American boys into combat in Syria via The Guardian. In 2013, McCain traveled to Syria and met with a rebel group that had ties to ISIS. Two of the men in one of more infamous pictures featuring McCain was actually involved in the kidnapping of 11 Shiite pilgrims in 2012 via PamelaGeller.com. As big as Russian scandal could be, McCain actually has an even larger skeleton in his closet. For decades, McCain has founded his entire political image on the fact that he was a prisoner of war in North Vietnam between 1967 and 1973. McCain has, for years, spoken about being tortured by communist guards and about how he never failed to betray his country. Well, all of that is a lie, too. Nicknamed Songbird by fellow prisoners, McCain made radio speeches in the late 1960s and 70s from the Hanoi Hilton by Oath Keepers. McCain is a fake hero who has used his privileged position to denigrate real American patriots like President Trump and Senator Rand Paul It's time for the songbird to finally shut up. Well, in my estimation, it's long past, but doesn't seem to be anybody doing anything about him. And people apparently keep voting him back in. So what's to be done? He's obviously senile and needs to step down because he's too old and perform anymore. But see, that's why they don't put me in charge of anything. And that's why McCain's still in there. The next one we have is off of Conservative Tribune. FBI to reveal truth about Trump's wiretapping claims to senators in a classified meeting. For the past 2 weeks, headlines have been largely dominated by President Donald Trump's claims that President Barack Obama wiretapped Trump Tower in order to listen in on what Trump was saying during the campaign transition period. While no actual evidence of such wiretapping has ever been revealed, the FBI sent a letter to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham responding to his request for a briefing, the UK Daily Mail reported. Graham said Wednesday that FBI Director James Comey agreed to brief Graham and Rhode Island Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, but only in a classified setting, meaning that the public won't be able to know what is said during the meeting. Is chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism. Whitehouse is its ranking Democrat. On March the 8th, the two sent a letter to Comey demanding answers to the wiretap controversy. Apparently, the FBI has contacted my staff and said that they will be, at some date in the future, providing us an answer to this in a classified manner, Graham stated at a hearing on Russian interference in U.S. election, according to the Daily Mail. If there was no wiretapping, or at least no proof of wiretapping, why does the FBI need a classified briefing? Something smells somewhat fishy here. The Hill noted that Graham did not provide a specific date for the hearing, and it appears that the FBI did not give him a specific date either. While that briefing will be classified, Politico reported that on Monday, Comey will testify publicly before the House Intelligence Committee, so there are sure to be some fireworks at that testimony, and maybe even a few answers too. It's entirely possible that during the briefing with Graham and Whitehouse on wiretapping, the FBI may have to talk about the Bureau's technical capabilities, which it would undoubtedly like to keep classified. However, the FBI has been asked for weeks to comment publicly on Trump's allegations and has refused to do so. This has led to a lot of speculation because if the FBI really doesn't have anything, why not just say so? Hopefully, we'll get some answers within the week. The next one we have is off of BizPac Review. And it says, if you thought Hillary's takedown was fun, wants to beat in 2020, a dream come true. If you enjoyed Donald Trump taking on Hillary Clinton, you may be in for a real treat should likely 2020 presidential contender Senator Elizabeth Warren be the Democratic nominee. But President Donald Trump would enjoy it even more, saying Saturday that going up against Warren would be a dream come true. During an appearance on Fox News' Water's World, the president, whose political prognostications are frequently on the mark, said, "Challenge, I think she'd lose so badly." Pointing no further than Clinton's failed presidential bid, Trump said Warren, who he sometimes called Pocahontas over a dubious claim of Native American heritage, was a detriment to Clinton on the stump because she was getting up with the craziness and that anger. "I think she hurt Hillary Clinton very badly," Trump said. "I watched those speeches and the anger and the hatred in her heart, and I said, you know, she's really bad for Hillary. Pocahontas would not be proud of her as her representative, believe me," he added. The remarks came during a lightning round segment, which can be seen here in a video if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. One we have, it's off of BizPac Review. And it says, Candid Kellyanne, who she called an effing miserable person and how she'd rather slit, and this is a quote, "slit my wrist, bleed out, than have Spicer's job." Kellyanne Conway was a bit more specific and direct this week about the possibility of accepting the position of White House press secretary. When asked about it months ago, she said that she wouldn't be interested. What White House chief spokesman Sean Spicer is going through, she reassessed. She would sooner slit her wrists. When the possibility was brought up during the administration's transition, she told radio host that although she's been offered the position, she politely declined. I have politely declined that job, Hugh, and I completely agree, she then said then. I think it's an incredibly important position to fill, and I know that there will be a qualified man or woman who takes that position and does an excellent job for President Trump and Vice President Pence. She was a lot more direct on the subject during an interview she gave to New York Magazine that was published on Saturday. Conway was first floated as an obvious pick for press secretary. Asked if she would ever want Sean Spicer's job, she rolled her eyes. Slit my wrist, bleed out, put cement shoes on, jump off the bridge, and then I'll take that job. Are you kidding me? Conway, whose White House code name is Blueberry, also spoke about her alternative facts statement that drew criticism. When NBC News' Chuck Todd claimed that Sean Spicer gave a proverbial falsehood about Donald Trump's inauguration, she replied, Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. She stuck to her guns on that one and insisted that she meant additional facts and alternative information. She gave as examples 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 1 is 4. Partly cloudy, partly sunny, glass half full, glass half empty. Those are alternative facts. She was even more direct when asked about her critics. Anybody who pretends I'm not smart or not credible, it's like, excuse me, I've spoken 1.2 million words on TV, okay? She said. You want to focus on 2 slips here or there, it's on you. You're an effing miserable person, she said. P.S. Just whoever you are. Conway's current White House position is counselor to the president. I was just thinking about poor Sean today. Bless his heart. I tell you what, if I could interview anybody on my show for just a few minutes, I mean, it wouldn't, give me a 5-minute interview. I'd give him the questions up front that I'd ask him, and I don't think I'd be asking him anything that he'd be afraid or ashamed to answer. As a matter of fact, he'd probably get a kick out of the questions that I'd ask him. But I'd ask him, Sean, how does it feel when you're talking to these press people that can't understand plain English? And say, you don't have to give me any names, but is there any of them you'd just like to grab and shake? How many bottles of aspirin do you go through a day? Is there any way that you get your aggression out after you talk to the press? Do you have like a room you go into and you got a board and a hammer and you beat the hell out of the board or something? Do you have any release to get your aggression out? And I'd ask him, hey, do you have any kids? And if you do, when your kids grow up, if they said that they wanted to be press secretary, what would you say to them? See, those are the kind of questions I'd ask him. Do you have any comfort foods that you go to? Sometimes when we get upset, we like to go to the ice cream, or some people like, meat and potatoes or something. Do you have favorite foods you go to? I wouldn't ask him nothing about the president. I wouldn't be asking him nothing about the wiretapping, none of that. I'd just like to ask him some questions about him. I think he is a fascinating person. Anybody that would take on that job, Lord have mercy, bless his heart. The next article that I have for you is off of foxnews.com. 3 U.S. soldiers shot in Afghanistan, insider attack. And there is some video in this if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. U.S. Army soldiers were shot and wounded Sunday when an Afghan Army soldier opened fire on them inside a base in southern Afghanistan's volatile Helmand province. Officials told Fox News. The attack occurred around 1:30 p.m. local time at Camp Antokik, in the Washer district in Helmand. Coalition security forces on the base killed the soldier to end the attack. Captain Bill Salvin, spokesman for U.S. forces in Afghanistan, told Fox News. The U.S. soldiers are receiving medical treatment at this time. More information when available. The severity of the soldiers' wounds was not immediately clear. Salvin declined to offer more details. There are roughly 8,400 U.S. troops on the ground in Afghanistan, more than in Iraq and Syria combined. Additionally, the Pentagon is weighing a decision to send more U.S. forces to Afghanistan. The top U.S. commander in the country, General John Nicholson, told Congress earlier this year he needed more U.S. and allied soldiers to help train the Afghan army. The detachment of U.S. Marines is scheduled to replace the Army unit in Helmand province in the coming weeks. Hundreds of Marines were killed fighting the Taliban in Helmand of the Afghan war. Since October 12, 12 Americans have been killed in Afghanistan and 5 Americans are currently being held hostage there. Obama-era force management levels, known more broadly as troop caps, have strictly controlled the number of U.S. soldiers on the ground in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, too. During a recent visit to Fort Campbell, home of the famed 101st Airborne Division, Apache gunship pilots told Fox News about the recent deployment of 101's aid to Afghanistan, only the helicopters and pilots deployed. The mechanics were left at home because of the troop caps. Contractors were paid tens of millions of dollars to fix the helicopters overseas. The next article that I have for you is off of Liberty Headlines, and it says, Trump says Germany owes NATO and U.S. vast sums. This is off of Market Watch. It says, President Trump had a parting message for German Chancellor Angela Merkel. On Saturday, one day after their meeting and press conference in the White House, Trump tweeted, despite what you've heard from the fake news, I had a great meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Nevertheless, Germany owes vast sums of money to NATO, and the United States must be paid more for the powerful and very expensive defense it provides to Germany. Last week, NATO said its members had boosted spending on defense and would focus more on fighting terrorism. The organization said that 23 member nations increased military spending in 2016, but added that defense budgets in a majority of European countries remain below the NATO standard and that they should spend 2% of their gross domestic product on the military. So there you have that. The next one I have here is off of Fox 5 New York, and it says Google adds tool to flag offensive search results. To improve the quality of its search results by directing review teams to flag content that might come across as upsetting or offensive. With the change, content with racial slurs could now get flagged under the new category called upsetting offensive. So could content that promotes hate or violence against a specific group of people based on gender, race, or other criteria. While flagging something doesn't directly affect the search results themselves, it's used to tweak the company's software so that better content ranks higher. This approach might, for instance, push down content that is inaccurate or has other questionable attributes, thereby giving prominence to trustworthy sources. The reviews team, comprised of contractors known as quality raters, already comb through websites and other content to flag questionable terms such as pornography. Google added upsetting offensive in its latest guidelines for quality raters. Google declined to comment on the changes, which were reported search engine land and elsewhere. The guidelines, which run 160 pages, an interesting look into how Google ranks the quality of its search results. For instance, it gives examples of high-quality pages, such as the homepage of a newspaper that has won 7 Pulitzer Prize awards, and low-quality pages, such as an article that includes many grammar and punctuation errors. The guidelines cite example of Holocaust history as a search query. The resulting website listing top 10 reasons why the Holocaust didn't happen would get flagged. The new upsetting offensive flag instructs quality raters to flag all web results that contain upsetting or offensive content from perspective of users in your locale, even if the result satisfies their user intent. So even if the results are what the person searched for, such as white supremacist websites, they could still get flagged. But it doesn't mean the results won't show up at all when someone searches for them. The final article I have in this episode, headlines, and I can't make this stuff up. Legislator who wants to fine men for masturbating files bill to force rectal exams. Oh my. Texas pro-abortion lawmaker, State Representative Jessica Farrar, introduced her male masturbation bill last week in an attempt to make pro-life laws and those who support them look ridiculous. But her bill may be having the opposite effect. The latest revelation about Farrar's absurd bill is that it would require men to undergo a medically unnecessary rectal exam and magnetic imaging and wait at least 24 hours before getting an elective vasectomy, a colonoscopy, or a prescription for Viagra, according to the Los Angeles Times. Her bill, which has no chance of passing, would also would prohibit ejaculation outside either a vagina or a medical facility in what it describes as an act against an unborn child, and failing to preserve the sanctity of life. There would be a $100 fine for violations, according to the Independent. In addition, it would provide conscience protections for doctors who do not want to perform a vasectomy or prescribe Viagra because of personal, moralistic, or religious beliefs. What I would like to see is this make people stop and think, Farrar told Texas Tribune. Maybe my colleagues aren't capable of that, but the people who vote for them, or the people that didn't vote at all, I hope that it changes their minds and helps them to decide what the priorities are. But pro-lifers say Farrar is the one who isn't thinking. Her proposal ignores the basic biological facts about human life and reproductive health care. Specifically, the medically necessary forced rectal exams appear to be her response to laws that require abortion clinics to perform ultrasounds and provide women with information about them before having an abortion. The problem is that abortion clinics' own websites state that ultrasounds routinely are performed prior to abortions. They are used to determine how far along a woman is in pregnancy and whether an ectopic pregnancy, which would be life-threatening if not diagnosed. My attitude toward her would be, why are you wasting time with this foolishness? Don't you have something more important that you need to be focusing on than writing a bill that you know is going to fail? It's not the American people that needs to be thinking. It's our elected officials that need to be thinking. For Christ's sake. Can't make this stuff up. Anyway, that's all I have for you in this episode. If you like what I'm trying to do here, please give it a thumbs up and let me know. And if please do pass this around on your social media so everybody gets to enjoy this entertainment. And I'll see you in the next episode.